I am your host, Shira Nelson, and this is PBS Western Reserve Forum 360, where we have a global outlook from a local view. Today, I'm interviewing Gloria Ware, the CEO and president of GTB Advisors, a firm dedicated to helping entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors create lasting economic impact through strategic business growth and acquisition. Today, we're going to discuss exploring different businesses, how businesses can win, and how to navigate the business process, and what resources are available to those ready to take a leap into business ownership. So hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
How are
Thank
you?
For having me. I'm doing well.
Awesome. So this is your second time on Forum 360.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So welcome back.
I'm happy to be back.
Joining another host.
Yes.
So Leah Love, the beautiful Leah Love.
Amazing Leah Love.
Yes, interviewed you last time. So we're gonna build on that.
Okay.
You recently did a workshop that I was inspired by. I hate that I couldn't make it, but I had to have you on to talk about those things that you discussed. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and what first drew you to entrepreneurship, counseling, and business advising?
Yeah, so I am a Cleveland native.
Okay.
So born in Cleveland, but I also spent time in Los Angeles and Detroit growing up.
Nice.
And graduated from The Ohio State University with a degree in international business. And during my time at The Ohio State University, I worked at the Office of Black Student Programs, which was in the student union. And so it was my responsibility to develop programs for students. And I encountered a Black Enterprise magazine, which I had never seen before during that time. I think I was like a junior.
Okay.
And I saw like all these amazing photos of like people and stories about like business executives and entrepreneurs. And I was like, wow, this looks really amazing. And I was a business major, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
As a business major, I could never really see myself in corporate. I think just because I had never really seen others like me in corporate.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like entrepreneurship, like that's it. So one of my first programs I did was on entrepreneurship. So introducing entrepreneurship and various resources that business owners could tap into. To the students that were on campus, but I also opened it up to the community. So the neighborhood, people that were in the neighborhood. And I invited people from the state of Ohio, which had the Department of Development, and that's where you would go to get support for starting your businesses. Okay. And then I found out that after the event, it was very well attended, that people had actually gone to it was Broad Street, the state of Ohio offices, and started the process of starting their businesses. And from there, I was hooked. So gradually graduated, went on to become a banker.
Okay.
And then have been working with small business owners for 3 decades, helping them to access capital, helping them to manage their cash. Worked in banking up until 2010, and also had a stint as a nonprofit banker, so also ensured that nonprofits had the cash and resources that they need. But I left and I went to work for venture capital entities, kind of / venture capital economic development. And in that process, got to work with a lot of startup businesses and see the venture capital side, which is very different than the banking side, which is much more very conservative and not very risk tolerant. And venture capital is there's still some risk management strategies, but like they're more willing to take a risk on those things. And then did some work with grants. So I actually funded business support organizations across the state of Ohio and their programs. So I also got to see kind of like what that looked like outside of Cleveland. Okay. But super passionate about entrepreneurship. I do believe that done right, and that's the key. It can be a tool to build wealth for individuals, but the key is done right.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Let's talk about that. I want to emphasize or follow up with the point of done right.
Yes.
How do you think, what are the steps for it to be done right? Let's just get right into it.
I think the biggest step is to know what you want the business to do for you personally.
Okay.
And so many people start a business out of a passion, which I think is great because that is what helps to keep you through the ups and downs of businesses.
Keep you motivated, yeah.
Yes, but we don't always think about what is it I want this business to do for me financially.
Okay.
Like what is the end game for this in terms of the wealth that is going to, specific wealth, specific income, and is this the right business? Does the business that I'm starting or growing or buying align with my financial goals?
Okay.
And then this is where the banker side of me comes into play.
Oh, okay.
Because as bankers, you're always paying attention to the money side of it. And you're looking at things like, do we want to make a loan to this business, which is in this industry, which typically has low profit margins?
Yeah.
So those are the questions that we're asking ourselves as bankers, but often business owners don't ask that question.
They
And a lot of it is just because they don't know to ask.
Right. Yeah, great point. Great point. So what inspired you to host the Buying a Winning Business workshop?
Actually, so I do a lot of work with business support organizations, and I do work with a foundation, a national foundation that funds this work. And this, it's called entrepreneurship through acquisition. It's like as a pathway, it's one way to start a business is to buy an existing business or to grow your existing business or footprint is to buy an existing business. And that's how the Amazons and the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, that's how they grew, by buying other businesses, and they continue to do that. And so I was doing research for this organization, and this was something that was of interest to the entity. And so just kind of started doing more research on it, but it was also on my radar as well. I was hearing some business support organizations talk about it. I attended an event that the Tri-C Center for Entrepreneurs had on entrepreneurship through acquisition. And I just, as a member of, was on the board of a nonprofit organization that actually, it was more of a merger. Okay. So I kind of had been involved with a little bit of that, but was really intrigued by the idea of, like this is kind of a hack. There's a lot of risk associated with starting a business, and even if you pick the right industry and growing it, but if you buy the right business for the right purpose, you've de-risked it because they already have customers, they already have an infrastructure, they already have employees. Right. So it can be a great tool for business growth. Okay. And it was something that wasn't really being discussed in our communities.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. We never talk about it. All I hear about is the downside of when a black business is sell.
Yes, exactly.
Or a business sell.
Right.
And it's just like, okay. The disconnect there.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's kind of nice to hear about the acquisition and learn the steps that you should take or consider for acquisition. Because there's so much negativity around selling the business.
Yes. And the other thing was that, there was a lot of conversation around entrepreneurship through acquisition, but it was targeted towards a certain type of person, right? That had a very strong network, that had resources, that had, wealth to invest. And I wanted to bring it down. I wanted to make it more accessible. Yeah. And think about the types of businesses. How you should be thinking about your business, right? One day is like, maybe I want to sell this business. Right. Or if I do transition it, how do I transition it to my children or family members or employees is another route.
Great point. Yeah.
But also, like, how can we make it so that the topic is more accessible and relatable to a greater number of business owners or aspiring business owners?
Yeah. So can you walk us through, like, high level like some steps that someone should follow when buying an idea or buying a business or an idea from someone else?
Yes, I think we should again, it goes back to that question of how do you want this business to serve you?
Okay.
Financially.
Always start there.
Like always at the end of it's always about the numbers.
Yeah.
I would say that's key.
Yeah,
it's about other things as well too, in terms of your lifestyle, the type of lifestyle that you want to have.
Great point. Okay.
Is how are you planning what role are you planning to play in the acquisition? Yes. Are you going to hire a person that's going to be the operator or the general manager, or is this something that you're going to do personally? So I think really understanding that piece of it, interviewing business owners, period.
Okay.
Right? Just to get a sense, if you're new in business, to get a sense of what does it mean to operate a business with employees. And then I think it's important for you to think about the types of industries that you want to get into, and then do your homework. So before we had that workshop, we had a workshop called Prove It and Profit, and it was really helping business owners, bringing market research resources down to your average business owner. But like helping you these are questions that you should be thinking about, information you should consider before you start your business, or as you're growing, thinking about establishing a new product or going to a new market, and here are resources available for you. So doing your homework on that, I would say start with the library. So at that event, we actually had Sarah Dobransky from the Cleveland Public Library downtown branch. She's like the lead research librarian. Talk to us about all of the resources that are available, people that are there, librarians that are waiting for you to come and answer your research questions, because most of us are not researchers, right? So there are people to help direct you. Establish a relationship with your banker, should be probably the branch manager or the business banker, and just start asking them questions about do they finance business acquisitions? What should you look for? Think of your banker as a resource, because you were the client. Right, as a resource to help you to navigate like any future financial plans that you might have. And so I always encourage people to establish relationships with multiple bankers early, before you even need any money. Because that is how you increase your odds of being approved, because number one, you're learning along the way of how what they look for, the types of businesses that they will finance, that they won't finance, what they're looking for in you, but they also get to know you and your story, and are more willing to pitch you or go very strong at the credit decision table, and encouraging like the deal to be done. So, and then talking to other, there's an organization called Promise Partners. It's based out of Case Western Reserve University, and it's like a members only type organization, but their focus is on helping you to navigate the process of starting a business. And then you're there with other people that have started businesses in the past, and so like you've got people that you can talk to and get questions to, and a lot of it is also about like a lot of the information that you get about finding business opportunities. There's a number of sources, and we can discuss those, but it comes through the grapevine. So at that event, we had Tangela Scott from Cleveland Bouncers, Bounce House. She was in the Goldman Sachs program with me, and she and her sons bought a bounce house business, a 20-year-old bounce house business.
They bought the business.
And I don't know if they were looking for a business to buy, but her story was that she served on the board, the YMCA, Hillcrest YMCA board, which is South Euclid and Lyndhurst, with the owner, and just through his observations of her and her sons. He was thinking about making a transition, but he really cared about his business and his employees, and had been kind of checking her out and saying, I think she would be like a really good person that I would like to consider to buy my business. So this is the other piece of, you just never know who in your circle is evaluating you and what opportunities are being presented to you, and people are making judgments or assessments about
without you even knowing.
So this is why I encourage people to get out and expand their network, serve your community, serve on boards, go to networking events, because that's how you find the right accountant, the right attorneys, the right business valuation person. Is by getting out and kind of hearing through those conversations.
Well, this is Forum 360, where we have a global outlook from a local view. Today, we're interviewing Gloria Ware, and we're talking about the process of what it takes to buy a business, how to grow it, and to sustain a successful business. So to continue our conversation, what do you think are some things that buyers should evaluate? Well, you did talk about the financial metrics, the doing the research, market research, which I'm so glad you talked about that tip, because I always tell my network that sometimes we jump into it, and people don't even talk about like surveying the community, or figuring out what area that they even want to be in.
Absolutely.
Or like people will say in my neighborhood, oh, I'm gonna open up let's just say a smoothie place, and I'm like, well, did you survey the market to see if there was a need?
Exactly.
Or did you just like the idea?
Exactly.
So
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some other things that people have to make sure they do or consider before buying a business?
Well, definitely say building a team.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So starting, because there's a lot that might be out of our scope of expertise, of decisions and information that you need to have. So starting early with identifying a team of accountants that specialize in business acquisition. Like, I'm not
good
saying
point.
any accountant. Accountants that specialize in business acquisition.
Good point.
And understand the financial analysis side of accounting. So almost more of a chief financial officer or fractional chief financial officer.
Okay, I like that.
Their job is to think about business strategy, and not a lot
Just
of
the
many
numbers.
accountants focus on taxes.
Or the reporting for taxes.
Exactly. So that's
Absolutely.
the biggest caveat. And then through your network, and then there are people, and typically these people have a finance background, valuation firms to help you with that process. And I think probably a lot of these people are probably accountants as well. And attorneys. That's huge, because
what kind of role do
negotiation,
the attorneys play?
helping you to negotiate with your negotiation strategy, and then helping you to understand contractually what you're buying. What are you buying exactly, right?
Good point.
Like, are both parties on the same page in terms of what they think they were buying versus what they're actually buying?
Have you seen cases where people wasn't on the same page?
I haven't, I haven't been that exposed to people that in the trenches of that, but I have definitely read about it. Because are you buying just kind of the physical assets of a business? Or are you also buying all of their problems? So, like, are there lawsuits that the business might have that are there other like issues that you might be subject to lawsuits happening in the business? Having your lender or your banker involved, because it's one thing for you to negotiate with the seller, it's another thing for you to get funding to finance that. The bank might say, well, we don't finance in that industry. Right, or this is what we would need, and they're reviewing the financial statements. I have been involved in situations where there were a discussion about kind of the value of the business and the income streams of the business. So, but when it was time for the owner to produce the tax returns, it didn't line up with the conversation. And that's because many accountants are also always encouraging people to save money. And so therefore your tax returns are making it look like you're not making as much money. So
you're not profitable.
The other one is, how much of the business is relying on that owner?
Great point.
Right? Like, it might be a charismatic owner that knows everyone, and everyone's doing business with them, and they have many of the employees are family members. So when the owner goes away, is there still a business? Right. And this is why, as you're building your own business, you want to think about creating a business that can operate without you. So that if you do decide to sell, that's not a question. It's that, when you go away, is the business gone? A lot of the ways that people mitigate that is having a contract where the owner stays on for a while.
I have seen that. Where they'll do like 6 months or a year. But also in the employees. You want to know what kind of employees are you acquiring, and are they based upon, you're buying this business because you think it's like flipping a house. Like, I'm going to say flip, maybe you want to hold on to it, but you're thinking like, I feel like this business, I could
I could increase sales by, 3 times.
Yeah.
If I implemented this technology, if I did, built this new infrastructure, if I expanded our markets. But like, do you have the right employees in place that are willing to do that?
Yeah.
I was doing a risk, a colleague and I, we were doing we did a webinar series on risk management.
Okay.
For business owners. And one of the business owners was sharing how they had these ideas about investing in technology, but then their employees were refusing to use the technology.
Yeah.
And they were the type of employees that are difficult to get and retain.
Oh.
And so it's like, okay, it sounded good, but
Yes.
you don't have these employees that are willing to use the technology.
Yeah, because all employees are not open to technology and AI.
Yes, they're afraid of it. I mean, just even like using a laptop, as simple as that.
Yeah, some are very afraid of technology.
Yes.
So on the upside, what are some of the benefits of acquiring an existing business versus starting a new one?
Well, you're acquiring that expertise.
Okay.
So you've got this business has a brand established.
Yes.
It's identified like who their target customers are and which
Right.
customers serve them well. They have ideally like operations and processes, so you don't have to start over trying to build
Yes.
that and learn on the job there. They might be in a market that you're trying to expand to. Say, for example, if you have an existing business and you're like, hey, I really would like to do business on the West Coast. So instead of you having to go to the West Coast and set up shop and try to learn the rules and regs, there might be a business that's already set up there, and you could either do a joint venture with that business, which might be a good way to kind of get started on seeing how well you work together and seeing maybe if the West Coast is for you. But you could also acquire that. I do remember reading a story about JP Morgan Chase, and I think this is where I first became exposed to this concept of like kind of stepping outside of your business ownership box and growing your business through joint ventures. Right? So this was like in 1875 or 1895. This is what JP Morgan was doing. So it was JP Morgan. So and he would say, hey, I want to do business in Germany. Who's already in Germany that I could partner with? Okay, let's do that. Now I'm making money in Germany without this huge investment.
Yes.
Yeah, so they form a
Such a
separate
great
LLC
idea.
to do that, and then that's just kind of how it works. And again, but thinking back to was like Facebook when it bought Instagram and then bought all of those businesses that we love. And sometimes people buy a business to eliminate competition, but sometimes they buy it because they see that business has they have intellectual property that you want, right? And that's one way to get that intellectual property.
Very great point. Very great point. Because I witnessed the Facebook and the Instagram acquisition. So what are the biggest risks and disadvantages when buying a business, even if it looks successful on paper?
Yeah. One of the risks might be that you're just not happy.
Okay.
Right? If you're going to be the operator, you find that and maybe you go from being a solo entrepreneur or managing 2 or 3 employees, and now you've bought a business that has 25 employees.
Yeah.
Does that fit your lifestyle?
Okay.
Right. And if not, there's ways of, again, doing this where you bring on an operator, a person that's their role to do that.
Okay.
But it can be a shift from having limited, running a business is hard regardless of how many team members you have, but it can be a huge lifestyle shift. The other one is, again, just there's an industry down, like the industry changes.
Yes.
So this is why it's important for you to also look at not where the current industry is now, but what could happen, what's down the road. We were talking about at the workshop how their insurance costs went from $5,000 to $15,000 in just 1 year.
Okay.
So that's why it's really important to have your pulse on the industry and bringing in also a team of advisors, so people that are familiar with that industry that can give you kind of like the inside scoop on what to look out for and what to consider. There could be regulatory changes that happen. The economy could change, which could affect the industry.
Absolutely, because we're seeing a lot of that these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And your employees, your employees just may not you may not be it for them.
Yeah,
Right. So
that's
thinking
true. Because
about
chemistry and
Yes.
culture, sometimes it's just
Will
not
they
a good
stay?
fit. Yes,
Right?
Very great point. Yeah.
what is the seller going to go and open up a new business
Mm-hmm.
and then take those employees?
Oh,
So there's
okay.
just
so much
so
to
many different
consider.
things that could happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if people want more information about acquisitions and buying a business, where can they go for more resources?
Yeah, so there's actually coming up, I actually have a toolkit.
Okay.
So, and it has access to podcasts, websites that you can go to
Okay.
look for businesses, access to some of the things that we talked about in terms of additional information and resources. There are some meetup groups. There's like some meetup groups in Cleveland where they talk about, purchasing businesses. There's Promise Partners, which has the entrepreneurship through acquisition, kind of like mastermind groups.
Okay.
Is what they do.
Cool, yeah.
Sign up for some newsletters on the topic. Do a Google search for like entrepreneurship through acquisition or mergers and acquisitions, small business.
How can they get access to your toolkit?
Yeah, so just email me at gware
Gware.
at GTB Advisors LLC.
Awesome,
Yes.
awesome. Well, today our conversation was with Gloria Ware. She offered invaluable insight into what it takes to buying, growing, and sustaining a business. To learn more about GTB Advisors and the resources available, again, visit her website. It is gtbadvisorsllc.com or her email that she mentioned. I am your host, Ashira Nelson, and this is Forum 360, where we have a global outlook from a local view. Until next time, I'll see you all very soon.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.